Mortal Kombat 1 is finally on its way and it's breaking a surprising amount of new ground for the franchise. While I'm a little unsympathetic that they've had to do a full universe reset in order to make Smoke human again, I'm super excited to see the most popular fighting game in the world get another shot at being taken a little bit more seriously by the fighting game community. While everyone and their mother has their own separate gripes with Mortal Kombat's recent direction, I for one have always felt it hasn't really been crazy enough for a few years. Back in 2011, it was one of the few games to really break free from the 7th gen colour palette of grey and beige, but more recently, Mortal Kombat's recessed into a very visually stale and subdued version of its former self, and gameplay wise, it's felt a lot more of an attempt to be on the heels of its forefathers, rather than finding its own unique footing and carving its own niche within the genre. Fortunately for me, and for you guys, it looks like this is exactly the kind of positive step forward we're getting with Mortal Kombat 1. Not only is the new trailer about as colourful and vibrant as the retro Mortal Kombat games, but they've announced that this game centres around the idea of Kameo fighters, a unique, separate roster of characters used for assists during battle. Now, this might sound insane as a feature just from that description alone, but there actually is a precedent for this, both within Mortal Kombat and in fighting games at large. While you might think the main precedent for 2v2 tag in Mortal Kombat is actually the tag mode in Mortal Kombat 9, this actually turns out to be surprisingly irrelevant to its inclusion in MK1, and I'll quickly go over why. Firstly, the tag mode in MK9 is fairly bare bones, and it was never balanced or intended to be competitively viable, and as such, many of the tag mechanics didn't get much thought put into them. There are 4 scenarios in which you can tag in this game. Tag combo is a preset string that tags out for no meter. Fast tag, where you launch an opponent and quickly swap for no meter. Tag attack swaps your character in with a tag attack for a bar of meter, and tag assist keeps your main character in play while the other character does a special attack for 1 bar of meter. Now, initially this might sound very relevant to tagging in Mortal Kombat 1, but the reason that tag in Mortal Kombat 9 wound up not being too relevant is the meter costs. If you could at minimum do tag assist for free, even if tag attack was still a bar, then who you picked as your assist, how much damage you got from your assist, etc. would actually be a very huge deal, lending this game mode a ton of depth. But because of the meter cost, you wind up in a situation where the tag character basically has not very much influence on the game as far as combos are concerned. That is a huge exaggeration, and over at Ketchup and Mustard's channel there's a great video about broken stuff that is potentially possible with this mechanic. And if this game was released today, it's probable the broken stuff in MK9 would be found a lot faster and put into actual practice by the masses in the tag mode if this was a playable online feature in the modern day. That's not to say there weren't things found at the time that broke this general rule of thumb. Multiple top players did find character combinations that could start infinite combos and touch of deaths, which exploited the properties of certain moves and pushed the tag system to its limit. But at this time, nobody was really doing this stuff in real tag matches, just for offline exhibitions of what you could do in tag match. Plus, it's not news to say that even back then, 90% of the audience of Mortal Kombat was playing super casually, and they weren't aware of just how competitively dominant and broken certain characters could be, and they were happy to play mid-tiers who either weren't as broken, or these players were just unaware how they were broken, which is mainly what led to how relevant this mode wound up being. Without an intense level of knowledge of the game, when you dumped meter into a tag attack, you may as well have just dumped meter into an EX move, which would give you a longer combo. It wasn't a very substantial feature at the time, and while it could be at times nigh unreactable in neutral, or as I said, broken if you had the right character combination, I don't really think there's much likelihood of this system having any bearing on MK1, especially given we know these characters are fully non-playable and you won't swap over to them, which leads nicely to the real tie-in with this new tag system in Mortal Kombat's history. So it's no secret that, especially lately, Mortal Kombat has a habit of including NPCs, fully finished characters that you can fight but you cannot play as, perhaps most infamous of which being Baraka's bizarre exclusion from Mortal Kombat 10. He had a complete moveset in this game, a slightly updated model, particle effects, etc., but he wasn't on the base roster for the game and wasn't ever added as DLC later down the line. NetherRealm never really gave an adequate explanation as to why he wasn't included, but I think safe speculation is that they didn't want to balance the game space around this sort of character existing. Even if you aren't worried that Baraka would have any 10-for-0 matchups, maybe his tools are not the sort of tools you want in the game, but being a beloved character or being a character you already have assets lying around for, it makes it very easy to include him as something you only see for a bit in the game's story mode, and you don't need to ever let the players have full exposure to this character or play as them themselves. Now, this ethos of reusing existing assets does lead to some doubt as to whether the Kameo roster will grow later down the line, since if you're just using leftover assets, but not making full movesets for these characters, is there actually room for them as DLC? But we'll get into that near the end of the video. First, I'd like to explain the precedent for Kameo fighters in other fighting games first. So, to explain in shorthand, an assist is a fairly simple concept in fighting games. Normally we think of these as being a team game system. If a game lets you pick 3 characters, the characters you aren't currently playing as can generally come in and quickly help you out. To this end, there's 2 main kinds of assists. A neutral assist, used to actually gain the first hit on an opponent and let you combo from it afterwards, or a combo extender, used mid-combo to allow you to get more damage and flashier combos. There's many kinds of assists that can fit into either or both of these categories, but I'll just leave it at that for now. Some games also let you choose which assist you get from a given character. Does Goku shoot a Kamehameha, or does he stun the opponent and force them to block? Both assists can be used for both purposes, but both work really differently whether they're in neutral or mid combo, and they work better when paired with different characters, which I think will be very important for Mortal Kombat 1's implementation of this feature, and whether it's successful or not. Now, assist-only characters have been a thing in fighting games for decades. The earliest examples I can think of are the KOF entries for 2000 and 2001. These games let you pick what eventually got to be a ridiculous amount of assist-only characters, at times having as many as 4 assist characters per character on the actual roster. In large part, this was SNK doing a victory lap. They'd already been immensely successful, and luckily they could just throw in sprites and characters they already had finished for other games into these games. So basically, stonks. This type of implementation only really works though for certain kinds of games, so it's pretty rare. You can see it in other franchises like the Naruto Ninja Storm games, but for the most part, that's about it. So Mortal Kombat is sort of breaking new ground, even though the concept's been around for a long while. But now's a good time for speculation on Kameo fighters, the fun part of the video. First off, who will actually be a Kameo fighter? The picture for it shows SubZero and Scorpion, and you know it's quite easy to imagine Scorpion asking for help and SubZero being a bro and shooting an ice patch on the floor for him. But that immediately begs the question, surely SubZero and Scorpion are both going to be playable. We've had it confirmed that Kameo characters are indeed separate from regular characters, and quite quickly, if this image actually is meant to imply SubZero as a Kameo, it's not hard to imagine Bi-Han and Kuai Lang considered separate characters for this purpose. And Mortal Kombat actually has a shocking number of characters with clans that aren't elaborated upon. Or even things like Noob Saibot's Shadow Clone, which could easily be included as a separate Kameo fighter without harming his place on the main roster. So I think given this direct tease using major characters, it's likely we'll see a lot of crossover between the main roster and the tag characters, even if they're technically separate. And initially, I'd also assumed the game would have one character for one function. That's how it works in these old King of Fighters games and in Mortal Kombat 9, but again, it's quite easy to combat that. Since modern MK now has made its name on the character variation system, every character already has free variations, so it's not hard to see that being mirrored with their assists. Plus, in recent games, like Skullgirls and seemingly Project L, assist characters have many possible moves they can come in with, depending on the input that's used when they're called in. While I doubt we're going to see real quarter circles finding their way into MK this way, it's wholly possible that backwards, forwards and downwards inputs can influence the move that SubZero flexes on Liu Kang with. Otherwise, we might see something a bit more similar to the MK11 tag implementation, where the character is programmed to do a different move depending on your range from the opponent at the time they're called in. But either way, we wind up at 3 separate assist moves per Kameo fighter, which is nice. And it gives us good room to then look at the part that's least fun to consider about this tag-only character system: balancing. So, in tag games, there's always, without exception, a tag tier list that's separate from the regular character tier list. It kinda goes without saying that this is gonna happen no matter how you design your tag system. This is an unfortunate side effect of having any degree of variety to any fighting game system. Unless all tags are identical, they're going to be different, and in 3v3 games this isn't as huge of a problem. While Dante Assist might be extremely good in Marvel vs Capcom 3, it doesn't mean that every single team just plays Dante, since it means you actually have to play as him. Some people don't want to do that, so they don't use his assist, even though it's top tier easily. But in an assist only situation, that isn't a problem. You don't have to know any of the nuances of the character and can just use the assist. And remember the two categories that I've listed earlier, neutral assists and combo extenders. The best assists are almost always the best assists because they're both, and they're the best at both. While some of you might think that surely NetherRealm would never make a mistake that big, this has happened in every fighting game that assists have been present in. While patches and updates can mitigate this somewhat, we haven't had one of these assist-only fighters in the modern age, and NetherRealm hasn't made any kind of actual tag game before, let alone dealt with the balancing mess that is a tag-only fighter. Now, this is still somewhat of a dub in my book, as worrisome as it may be. I think that NetherRealm games are way better when there's truly disgusting nonsense characters in the mix, whether that's auto-zoning Batman, or auto-zoning Cabal, or auto-zoning Cetrion, or auto-zoning Superman, or auto-zoning Captain Cold, or Stryker.
Police brutality coming up!
But normally I really do want the strength of each character to be mirrored in a variety of strengths being present across the whole roster. It's one thing to see 4 Fujins in top 8, and it's an entirely different thing to see 8 different players all using Ice Clone Assist. While I'm sure NetherRealm are going to be on their best behaviour about trying to make this system make some semblance of sense, and not wind up with severe overrepresentation, I'd just like to quickly point out the beauty that is Tekken Tag Tournament. This game is mayhem to watch, but it's a very controlled and surprisingly sophisticated amount of mayhem. And while this isn't a tag-only game, your assist is limited solely to neutral or as combo extension, and it's pretty easily the best example of a 2v2 fighting game we have, and in my opinion it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Tekken Tag 1 or Tag 2. Bamco actually knocked out the park with both of these games, and this franchise does a very good job of balancing the way you use and pick your tag characters, because your tags must carry combos forward to completion for you. So every assist character winds up carrying out better juggles in different scenarios, rewarding better knockdowns, getting more damage, or ending at different ranges from one another. Your partner character rewards you entirely differently between teams, and what reward you can get from them differs a ton based on your first character. And I think this would be a really great way for Mortal Kombat to point this system moving forward. Mortal Kombat's roster is already rich with bizarre angles certain characters are best at punishing, like Kung Lao, Katana, and certain characters people really don't want returning and dominating the meta again, such as Tremor, could offer a lot in neutral with a DBZ barrier assist, or something similar. While there's a drought of content about Tekken Tag specifically online, Fury Fighter has an excellent video on Tekken X Street Fighter and picking your team in that game, which I'll link in the description and on screen right now if you're interested in these systems and choosing a tag partner. I think deciding whether you want to gain a mix-up vortex or just raw damage out of your combos would be a great way to balance this system out, and give choosing your Kameo fighter some nuance. That idea of picking out your assist leads us nicely to the final point of contention with Kameo characters, that being DLC. I'll be frank that having been part of FighterZ when GT Goku Assist was making the game unplayable, if Kameo fighters return as DLC, it's gonna be straight up pay to win. There's not really a lot of room for fighting game systems like this to have opt-in win conditions for money. Those characters, if they do wind up being added, need to be free, because you are going to wind up with something that is both the best neutral assist and the best combo extender in at least one of these DLC characters. And even if it's not perfect for use with every character, it'll be good enough to break at least one character pairing. While DLC characters being pay to win can sometimes feel like a grating and repetitive argument, one that normally can be fairly easy to wave away and justify paying for, with this kind of system, the room for devs to monetarily abuse you is way higher. Since this could effectively mean that without buying a DLC character, you're playing a worse version of a base game character that you already main. You can be placed at a severe competitive disadvantage if you're forced to play using an assist that is both harder to use and has less damage assist than a DLC fighter. And that's only in the case that the assist is only broken with one character pairing. Assists that are broken, busted, or top tier are almost always universally good or broken when paired with any character. So I'd really hope that if these are coming with season passes in future, that they're included as free update content for everyone, and not just flat paid DLC. It'd be a really quick solve for the potentially huge amount of outrage that this could cause, and I think there really does eventually need to be DLC for these Kameo character slots. With NetherRealm seemingly slowing down production as of late to focus on bigger, less frequent games, this could easily be a 5-year or longer Mortal Kombat, presumably even more than that. And if there's even as much as 20 Kameo fighters on launch, which seems extremely doubtful and quite a large number to hope for, players get tired and spectators also get tired of seeing the same thing year after year. So I think it's basically undoubtable that we'll see more Kameo characters added as the roster grows in general. But what do you guys think? I tried to be as comprehensive as I could be, given I played a lot of these modes in Mortal Kombat throughout my life and a lot of tag fighters as well, and seeing this become a main thing is as exciting to me as it is worrying. While we're yet to see the full breadth that this system actually holds, I did my best to cover everything that we've seen thus far and what I think we can expect to see moving forward from here. These kind of genre-wide overviews can take a lot of time to make and come to complete conclusions about, so if you like this kind of news coverage video, it would mean the world to me if you supported the channel, whether that's just via liking and subscribing to the channel, or through supporting me on Patreon or via my YouTube membership, where you can get early access to more scripted videos or even have your name in the credits, like this wonderful human being who's my first subscriber on the platform. If you have any guesses as to what we could see from this system in the new Mortal Kombat, feel free to throw a fastball into the comments below, and until my next video releases, or if you're just looking for more MK news in the far future, I'll leave you all by saying, stay safe.